Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CreateAWorld. This morning, we've all been stirred by our dream states. So, for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, several of us had been exploring what it is to create worlds, what it is to funnel and use what's moving through us. And then we expanded to include others. Several of us and now what we're engaging with is well, that plus what is again moving through each of us. And last night I had a whole lot of dreams that really left me feeling danced upon, and a lot is moving through Tantra as well from the dream state. The dream state kind of poked a hole between the worlds and is uh, informing her very deeply. And so she's going to share from there. But first, Janice, was there something that you were going to add to this?
You're muted, Janice.
Tantra asked me to explore a little bit about the tripwire of trying to learn in what you're about to hear. So the encouragement will just be to be with what you're hearing rather than trying to learn. But let me say a little bit more about the distinction. So when we're younger and we go to school and we learn in school, that experience typically happens inside very specific parameters and with very specific purposes. And sadly, much of learning in formal school settings can be about simply memorization and regurgitation. Sometimes it gets to application, but frequently in application, again, it's in a very sort of, I think Deb would say, redacted experience. Still sort of under this, eye of, well, a chocolate chip cookie only looks like this, and it never looks like that. And if as adults, oftentimes if we find ourselves in experiences where we think we ought to be able to understand something, we can take it from the lens of it must fit inside my current way of thinking. So that's one of the other challenges of learning, is that, okay, I've got to fit it inside my current way of thinking. But there are times in our life, and I am confident that what comes through Tantra today is going to be one of these times where the idea is you're blowing down the walls. You're opening up into a whole new reality that you've not been dancing with before. And so I'd encourage you, if you find yourself trying to fit what she's saying into current ways of thinking, just let that go. Just be with it. Just let it move through you. If there's words that don't make sense, phrases that, just let it flow through you. Don't feel like you have to, at the end of the hour, be able to answer the multiple choice questions correctly. And recognize that again, in this sort of formal learning structure in which we were raised, we can be trained to think that if I did it right, I know the one right answer. And this is not going to be that at all. So instead of clarity, you may find your mind just whirling, going, wow, what the heck just happened? And I would say, given my experience of working with Tantra, if you find yourself at the end of the hour going, what the heck just happened, then you're exactly where you need to be. So is that sufficient, Tantra? Okay, over to you.
Yeah, so I want to say a couple of things. When I started the Spirals of Being in 2014, it was for now, it's for this time. And people left, but most stayed. And so there's a community, a collective of people who have been in daily or monthly or weekly conversations where something has become visible that wouldn't have been visible if we hadn't all been having sensory stimulation and different synchronic and oddities happening to us. It wasn't just that we found somebody else was having those oddities or anomalies. It found that it began to create what we call a coherence. And a coherence is where a whole bunch of things in a collective, this is why indigenous tribes are so powerful in their day, because they story told and they came around the fire and they shared. And it's why we have CreateAWorld. Because in that collective event of being one with creation, creation could transmit information. So as an individual, it isn't that creation, source, whatever you want to call it, is not transmitting information. It's that when she was talking about we are born into learning existing facts. We're not born into listening creation or listening our direct relationship to source. So when I first started my work, one of the most common conversations, which is so exciting because it's no longer true, that's what makes it so exciting, is people would say, is that real, Tantra? Could that really have just happened? Is that true? And I would always say the true part would say, of course, it's true for you. Because I knew they were in their direct link with source. For some unknown reason, which I'll never understand, I have been in that situation since the day of my birth. It's why I can legitimately be called a mystic. It's why I can be called a seer. It's why I can have these odd things, as Janice said, where these transmissions come through me. And it really is that way for people like me. They have to be transmitted. And learning to transmit without caring how people react to you has a lot of baggage on it. Burned at the stake, flayed alive, branded, ostracized. So there's a lot of phenomenon around that aspect of us that lives in that direct link with creation and lives in that direct relationship with source. The only reason I'm using separate words is creation is an overarching existence within which we all dwell. Source is more direct. It's a aspect of greater being. It's an aspect of it's a dynamic of a greater beingness of which you are a part. And hold on, I'm having to text my child in the midst. The other thing I knew was I would start getting interference. So good interference in this case. Hold on. All right. So the point being that something has been rising in the field of Tantra Maat, i.e., also in the field of the magicians of self, which is a 11-month progression of awakening in what we call the magician of self. And Janice or Deb, if you all would get that definition out, I'll ask for it in just a moment. In just a moment, we'll read what that means, because it isn't like the wizard with the with the cone hat on his head or her head waving a wand. It means restoring the magic of life itself. And that when when that magician of self awakens, we're in the magic of, simply said, we're in the magic of life. We're not in the entrapment of something I'm about to talk about. We're not in the entrapment of something that sucks the validity of life out of us. So a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, there began to be anomalies in the field of Tantra Maat. Dream states started that were intense and often not perceivable in a manner that one would have been used to their dream states. For me, that was definitely true. Then I began dreaming about people I knew, Janice, Deb. So I'm a dream walker. So that wasn't odd for me because I'm related to them. But as if there was a greater overarching intelligence at work, all of a sudden I had a detailed dream about one of my members that lives in mid-Europe that I have no personal relationship with. And it wasn't so much the topic of the dream, which is why I'm having this conversation today. It was the weirdness of the dreaming. It got through to me that how I had been holding my dreams was like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And then I have this dream and I'm like, oh wow, I don't know what this is. So that's one piece. And the other piece is in the electromagnetic field. So because the electromagnetic field in esoteric belief, I'm not asking you to believe it. In fact, I'm not asking you to believe anything I say. All I'm interested in is I deliver the information and it pings within you what you are present to, that you have a relationship with, not even a context, not even new content. Jens, can you explain the difference between those things?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So what Tantra's, when she says context and content, that sort of implies like a fixed skeleton on which things can be hung. And the thing is, when you're birthing into a new reality, that skeleton isn't going to be there. So you really are, it's like surfing instead.
Beautiful.
But things might ping anyway. And that helps. That is like both the aha or the, oh, I have a relationship with this, and kind of a navigational tool and a way to see what you're related to.
Beautiful, because we're talking about the difference between an objectified reality where everything is a thing that we need to understand it, mostly so we can protect ourselves or be part of it, versus a relational field within which everything is in relationship with everything else. Everything has a place and everything is part of everything and everything's operating on behalf of everything. Well, in the field of Tantra Maat and the Magicians of Self work, we're getting a visceral experience of that. And believe me, our little noggin doesn't know how to process the information. It is so experiential that processing the information is limited to the present context and content of how we have perceived reality up until now. So what happened was that in the esoteric days, and there was language and relationship with the powers and forces of creation. There is and still in the Eastern tradition, we have, and I never remember which one, Shakti. I think Shakti is the electrical system. And Shiva, these are GODs, these are generating organizing designs of creation. And Shiva is a magnetic. In deep esoteric work, because remember, those are traditions that we now, many people honor. I was actually listening to a chant about, it starts with a K, one of the gods that starts with a K, Krishna. Krishna, 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 we get our life from Krishna. But see how it redacts into we have to get our life from Krishna? Not the relationship with Krishna, for some, not for me, but the relationship with Krishna. And also as a generating organizing design, what is that field? What is the field phenomenon of Krishna that might have other terminology in other realms that lets us know we're in contact, okay? In a deeper esoteric, which I'm working to get the man that knows this deeply to talk to my people. I'm going to send this video to him because he's a shaman and it takes a bit to get his attention, but I'm at work. He talked to me one day because I had a weird phenomenon in a Tom Kenyon event, and I went out to the car immediately and called him. And he talked to me about how the electrical field and the magnetic field are two faces of the angelic kingdom. And it blew my mind, not because I believe it, but because what had happened to me in the room definitely demonstrated what he was saying to me on the phone. It didn't fit anything else except what he said on the phone. So our brain, our neural fiber is shut down in the relational field of our direct relationship with the powers and forces greater than ourselves. Greater just means they have a longer shelf life. They last longer and they aren't as easy to destroy. But we're all pretty clear if we let ourselves think, not be 2-year-olds or even 8 or 15-year-olds, well, maybe 15-year-olds for sure. But if we let ourselves think something is wrong here, where we're always looking for the enemy and we're always in fear of harm, then isn't it logical to consider we as a species might have been harmed? And that we as a species might have had a power of force greater than ourselves actually rip us away from the fundamental relationships we had that made this place beautiful? I mean, how come humanity is not beautiful to itself when everything else is, from storms to plants to trees to animals? How come? And there have been many deitic realms that have consciously been at promise, because I've been in this since I was 3, been working to restore this interwoven, this intrawoven. Intra means with all of creation, returning us and our relationship with the greater powers and forces of creation within the greater creation of which we're a part. Within means intra. Inter means between. And I'm not talking about between. I'm talking about I am watching with others the very fabric of the original nature of the original design here being restored. And my opinion is that if it can keep to being shared, if we can keep sharing it among ourselves, like storytellers, not like trying to get you to think I'm telling the truth or give you a new application for your life. I'm not interested in any of that. But if it can keep something alive in you that is restoring itself, then coming out into this conversation today is well worth it. So I'm just going to turn it over to Jess and Deb and see if they have anything, and they'll get into the next piece.
Yep, I do. How about you, Janice? Just go for it. Okay, so here's an exact example of what Tantra's talking about. There's many things that she said that I have a relationship with. And so one of them is the dream world. I dream a lot, and they're active I've always called them working dreams. Maybe there's a little bit better uh, term for it, but the point is it's times that I'm engaging with whatever else there is, or it's engaging with me is more more typical. So for me, that was like a familiar landscape to drop into as she's talking. Like finding my place at the circle of sitting down, sharing stories, maybe. As I'm just kind of turning this into a story itself. But the big one that really pinged me is in my work of the vital psyche, the absolute fundamental piece is um, that people are intrinsically whole and always have been. Maybe there's things in the way to expressing that, but that's not the same thing as you're not whole, you're broken or anything, because you're not. So to hear her say that, and I was thinking yesterday, what periodically I revisit this. This is an ongoing conversation with myself. I was thinking about what has us not know that? What has us either forget or be so afraid? Because I used to just, when I met someone, that's what I would see, and I would meet them from there. And often that didn't get a there was not a welcoming response to that. There was fear or recoil or suspicion or some protective something until I learned to adapt and not do that. But what is that? And I was thinking about that yesterday. What is that whole phenomenon from down through the ages? And, when I came to the call, I'd had a whole bunch of dreams last night, not in a cohesive whole where I could tell the story of the dream, but lots of images and sensations and energies and but I feel like it was a conversation, a very active, dynamic conversation. And I'd even use the word dark, but it wasn't dark like bad. It was dark like storm clouds. And so, so it's fascinating.
But it did disturb your psyche.
It did. It really did.
But the reason I want to pause for that is that we think disturb means bad. And what if disturbed is contact? And
Yeah.
what if disturbed is contact that we don't yet know the relationship with that contact?
Yes. Yes. I mean, there was a level of inconvenience because I had to get on this CreateAWorld and I had to think and, whatever from a certain.
It can disturb your day.
It definitely, yeah. So, but it wasn't disturbed like bad, like Tantra said. It was disturbed. And I don't know what the communications were particularly, but it felt like loads of data points and information and don't you see our point? And lots of I don't know if that's as far as I can go, but about that. But it it does require either expand to include or prepare to be interrupted. And but I'm happy. First off, a lot of this happens in tandem with Tantra and I anyway, frequently. But I'm really happy that, the last couple of weeks I've started talking about the thing about wholeness and with others more than just myself. And to hear her say that piece, and it occurred at pretty much the same time, that means we've got somebody's attention or something's attention in the greater whole. And now it's going to start, even if it takes the rest of our lives, it's now going to start being awakened in human beings. I'm complete for now.
Janice, anything for you?
I just am present to the energy of children. So if you watch really young children and you watch how they just play and interact, they're absolutely in this relationship that Tantra is talking about. And so, if there's any doubt that that's the original nature of the original design of the one soul human, you just have to look at the fact that every single child is born into that expression. So
Beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. So the other thing that happened in the EM is I scheduled an appointment with one of the members of the Magician of Self and myself. He's doing the work inside of it, and at the very same time, we're paying attention to development and the more secular aspect of our existence and our relational aspect of our existence. And when I booked the appointment, I'm going to have to now look at my calendar so I don't hook anybody's mind in the wrong place. Let me just get my calendar up. Yep. So when I booked the appointment, it was for Monday, the 12th of August. But when it showed up in my calendar, the 12th of August was on Tuesday. So I wrote him a letter and told him or an email and told him his appointment calendar was wrong, that the 12th was actually a Tuesday, not a Monday. Then he wrote me back and said, I'm looking right at my Apple calendar. So he wrote back and he said, well, your Apple calendar is wrong. So I had to get up and go in the kitchen and get a wall calendar to actually make sure that the 12th of August was really on Monday. And I came back and then I had to leave it. It was there all day. I had no idea what I was going to do with it. Googled it and it just doesn't happen on Apple Calendar. And then I reset, I clicked today rather than having the whole calendar with all the dates. I clicked today and it all reset itself. Now, here's the kicker about this. In the work of the Magician of Self, in the Guardians, which is another group, I made a request that they do the templates connected to the month before. So run the templates means that you write 1 through 7 templates, and each one would be connected to the time before. Now, people think I have like a teacher's layout of a curriculum. No. What happens in a developmental realm with others is their consciousness begins to attract my psychic attention, and my psychic attention feeds into the greater field of creation. And then the next recursion of what there is to do here from the craving or the operating state of being part of the greater whole of which we're a part, as well as being part of the greater whole of which we are, as well as part of the greater whole of which I am. So that's the configuration of the work. But I said we had to fold back time. So isn't it uncanny? Isn't it uncanny that never in the history of all the years I've had a computer has the day shifted on my calendar? And when I clicked back today, it set back time. So why I'm starting this conversation is starting this year, there is now evidence in our physical reality of something happening, that a greater configuration of reality is starting to impact our physical existence, which now brings me to, that's the electromagnetic energy. So Josh said that his computer had been going wacky all week. And I wrote back and I said, well, we have two choices. One choice is something's out to get us. The other choice is something's trying to be back in relationship with us. And that's what's just so impossible for human beings to understand, that we were once an essential and unique part of the creative process here. We walked with the gods. We walked with the primordial forces. We walked with the animals. We walked with the plants. We were a shared mind. And it's beyond my belief, it is my certainty that that shared mind is starting to return in the neural fabric of human beings. And when that shared mind returns in the neural fabric of human beings, they can't be messed with anymore, because their neural fabric is now part of the paradise within which we all exist in relationship with everything else. So then last night, I had my Australian Magi call last night, and I started listening intently because something was behind everybody sharing in the call. And that's really important. Two things happen when your listening starts to pick up on, and maybe one of you two can help me understand the phrases, but when our neural fabric, like when our neural fabric can't configure, is listening and can't configure what the topic is, what the person's talking about, what'll happen is often we'll black out, or we'll go deer in headlight, or we'll just go, well, this doesn't apply to me. There'll be some trigger, but there was this vastness behind their sharing, like there was another listening and another set of communications, like Deb's dream. It was disturbing, but there was clearly another fabric of consciousness that our shares and what they were paying attention to literally was stimulating, that I could hear, but I couldn't process it. It couldn't get, like Deb couldn't process her dream. And we think if we can't process something, it's either irrelevant or terrifying, or wrong. So we've got to let our neural fabric stretch. We have to, because something extraordinary is happening. But as that neural fabric stretches, it also stretches into remembrance, not necessarily cognitive memory. Fear of harm usually is where it stretches into. It's better to stay dumbed down and under the radar than it is to be part of the intelligence of creation again, because in that intelligence of creation, real shit happened. And that remembrance is there. So at one point, I suddenly realized Tosh had been sharing about Tobias, who's a being that asked for an audience recently. And he was laughing about his human life that he wanted everybody to know about, because he actually really was very emotionally alive. He didn't really have right, wrong, or good, bad. I came here to have a great time and explore my expressions of creation in a expanded way. He also, in his life, he started the first stock market in France in the 1600s. So he's a notable character. And I know this may seem hard to believe, but what if it's real? What does it speak to, that what might be going on between the different dimensional planes of consciousness that are now starting to, in the field of Tantra Maat, we've been doing this intentionally. We've been restoring our direct link with creation, literally to become part of the greater realities of which the holistic aspect, the hologram of wholeness, of which we were designed to be a part. So as she was talking, which goes back to what Janice said about, he just came as a child. He just came to play. And the problem with him is he still plays, which makes me have to shut him down sometimes, because some of his playfulness is a little erotic and therefore offensive. But for him, it's all good stuff, So she was sharing about that. And then I suddenly realized she used a term of sentient. Oh, shoot. See, I knew my mind was going to be challenged on this one. a sentient signal. And all of a sudden, all this phenomenon that we've been experiencing, so many of us, I went, oh my God, that's a great term for we're getting sentient signals. And we've been looking for information and explanation. We have not been looking for signals. And it blew my mind. I've got chills, even using the term, I want to start crying. So I went to sleep. I said, and then I can't remember the other thing. I have somebody on my WhatsApp that that was there, so she might be watching. And if she is watching, she will tell me the second piece that I can't remember. And if she's not,
I'm going to interject.
But 1 minute. But I'll add that later. Go ahead, Deb.
The sentient signals is an expansion of what we call information. As soon as I heard you say that, the Western mind holds information as a certain parameters. And then, of course, the school system has it even narrower, as Janice has described. So we're very conditioned to think of information as a narrowish band. So sentient signals is forcing us to expand into other intelligence. That's amazing. Thank you.
And I love that. And also the other piece of it was I'm involved. You're going to hear the dog bark. I'm involved in a phenomenon in Damanhur, Italy, the Temple of Humankind, and then their Q2Q, their newspaper. They wrote about information. But I had talked to Marshall Lefferts, and also had talked to who's a cosmotrometry physicist thinking person, and then also the Ayurvedic doctor, Michael, and both of them had the same conversation, one in the Ayurvedic tradition, one in the quantum physics tradition, that we're always in formation. We're always in formation. And so what Deb said about we are in forming. There's no doubt we're in a new forming. There's just no doubt at all. And we are starting to get, because one of the things I put pressure on the field about, especially in the Magicians of Self, is it has to become to cognition. I am the word. This is how human beings anchor in multidimensional reality. When I said sentient signal, everybody went, aha. Not because it helped us understand anything, because in I am the word, it gave a placeholder for an experience that goes beyond the phenomenon that we are presently in. So the next piece of this is that hold on, I'm seeing if I got my message. Okay. The next piece of this is, so I went to bed last night. I started talking to them about what I was listening to, because this is where it's going to be challenging to bring to words. So Janice and Deborah have a great time challenging me until ask me questions so I get my head around it, or ask me on the thing on the WhatsApp. So what did I hear? I heard there were two realities present. One was the reality of unity, and one was the reality of separation. And that we live in a reality of separation that is simply a timeline. Did either of you have the workbook up and can read about timelines? Just interrupt me if you get it up. Because we've been working on our memory is the memory we hold to be credible is only in one timeline. It's got its whole story. It's all put together well. And then somebody remind me about Aborigines so I don't lose my train of thought, because I'm definitely in my neurological battle right now. But do you have it, Janice?
I do. Do you want me?
Yes, please read it.
Do you want me to read the reality in time territories or the time of time territories, or both?
Let's do reality and time territories.
Okay. The realities and time territories. In the work we embark on together within the realm of remembrance and recall, you delve into territories of time that harbor distinct realities, each bearing the imprints of your existence. Consider this. As you journey through the corridors of memory, you traverse not only the linear confines of our current reality, but also the expansive landscapes of other time territories. Imagine your consciousness is so vast that it spans across epochs of multifaceted existence, retaining fragments of experiences from realms beyond your immediate comprehension. Envision realities where forgetting was not a loss, but a necessity for survival, as beings traversed into realms that had diverged from its creation-based origins. In the vast expanse of time, there exist territories where creation-based systems once thrived, their vibrancy dulled only to await the opportune moment for resurgence. These territories, dormant yet resilient, safeguard the templates of realities that defy destruction until the cosmic conditions align, ushering in a new era of awakening. It is within this intricate tapestry of existence that we create matrices of unified fields, providing sanctuaries where these time territories find refuge and renewal. Here, amidst the convergence of energies and consciousness, these dormant realms are offered a space to reawaken and reclaim their place within the cosmic symphony.
Thank you. So the other thing I was listening to on the call was we were in two time territories. And I say two with one of them being maybe multiple. But while there was this experience of the horror of the memory of what happened to the indigenous people in Australia and how all the riverbeds are drying up, the odd thing was there was this experiential experience that they were having where it wasn't that way. And I had had a dream the night before, and in the dream, I was told, because I'm deep in dream state now, I was told that humanity is now using their light bodies to weave webs, to weave new webbings within which everything on the planet can be restored. So all of a sudden, I'm in this dream and I'm listening to this call, and they are clearly experiencing both and I said to them, it just means the fabric of this reality is no longer holding us as imprisoned as it has for centuries and centuries and centuries. That the very fabric of the reality won't change. This is a time territory. This is a time territory where we're separated from each other, where we go, where that which operates on behalf of life is destroyed. That is only one territory. And it would seem, which I actually wrote about in my book, The Language of Creation. Now I'm going to go back and read my own book because it was basically channeled, and I think there's more information there now than I realized. I could see last night that they were having a direct experience of now this is really hard to get, that in one territory, it's like never-ending story, the end of never-ending story. In one territory, everything's destroyed, but in another territory, everything flourishes. And I realized the dream I'd had the night before, I went, oh my God, this is why I had a dream about the Aborigines walking the earth again. In other words, it doesn't change in this time territory. We just step out of this time territory into a time territory because we can do this in the power of a relational field. You are relating to trauma. I am too. I mean, my physical body has been in a state of depression ever since I got my heart fixed. But I'm aware it's my physical body is in a state of depression, and my consciousness is not. And at some point, my physical body will connect with my consciousness that is not, and it will relieve itself of the pressures and the horrors of the time territory I found myself born into. And so I realized this phenomenon had been happening to me where I have a National Geographic. There is unbelievable amount of data about the history of the Spaniards in Mexico and Mesoamerica. Unbelievable stories, including a man who actually wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid. A Spaniard that said, no, we're supposed to learn from these people, and they saved my life. But somewhere in time, that story still lives that story still exists to be lived. I promise you that all that happened was that a time territory came in that destroyed life here, but life can never be destroyed. This etheric imprint of it maintains itself in the ethers. It maintains itself. And I'm also reading all about Turkey. And one of our people is so Turkey-centric that it's unbelievable. And how come National Geographic is doing innumerable stories about the Spanish and Spain and innumerable stories about Turkey? And I'm a timekeeper. I'm a time phenomenon. My consciousness is a time territory. I have the mind of that. And I realized that through the ethers, I'm getting the end points of a timeline, like in the Mesoamerica story. He had in that man, remember Tobias, that man that did the first stock market? I know it sounds outrageous. Is it possible in the ethers he's shifting with others in the way we don't understand others and creation, the very fabric within which the stock market works up? And isn't it interesting, if anybody looks at the news, the day Tobias talked, the next day the stock market went down and came back up. I need to get this said. What you do with it, I don't really effing care. But it's being fed into the electromagnetic field, and the electromagnetic field is getting the information, and it knows we're present. It just the way I'm giving out a sentient signal. I am sending out a sentient signal. And then, so there's a phenomenon going on. And then last night, which is what brought me standing up and saying to Janice and Deborah, make room for me, here I come. and we had to shift my loca into my being the main speaker, because the psychic part of me doesn't operate in a shared field. It's a direct link with a system of creation. So that's why we introduced me the way we did, and why we framed it the way we have, so that field phenomenon has a certain location that allows it to come through in basically all its glory, like we should all come through with all our glory. But last night or early morning in my dream state, in it more like what would you call it? A consciousness state than an actual dream state. A consciousness state, I began to process all the data, all the informing that had happened in the Australian Magi, and what it was happening with the EM, and my desire to reach the shaman. And because I don't really I'm not really idle, and I'm not really I'm very directional. Let's just put it that way. So I was just talking to myself in my dream state about what was this directionalness that I found myself in? What was I tracking? And what we, they, it actually was tracking. And then I had this phrase come. It was like a formula. It was a formula, actually. And the formula went, when one enters a state of unity, it opens the codes to realities of unity. And it's like being at the end of a creation exercise. I had my finally embodies. So what I realized was that all we have to pay attention to in our frame is restoring our state of unity, which is a relational field. So then when we have odd EM occurrences, it's an opportunity to be in relationship with whatever may be signaling you. And it's up to each of you whether you're going to call it the enemy or not. This is the big barrier. The horrible, I think Deb said something to it, or Janice, I can't remember. But when a species been so harmed, they're not easily enrolled in that contact may be friendly. So it does, in some instances, take two vital pieces. One vital piece is that we have to be willing to explore what's trying to relate to us. And we need to have enough agency, enough sovereignty in our own being to say, excuse me, but I don't really want to, I said a monarch butterfly fly by, to have the agency to say, let's see let me open my door enough. And this is where we're in the fragility of this part. Do you understand? This part we haven't gotten into. I don't think we have. I don't think as conscious beings, consciously conscious beings, I don't think we have explored this part, but now I'm bringing us up to that edge. So those of you a magician of self that are watching and the guardians, I'm bringing you to this edge because you've done the work. And you've done the work and you're in a relational field. And when you're in a relational field, do you understand you're protected by a relational field? It's a different kind of protection. There's a protection of consciousness that operates on behalf of life and has life exist as whole. So there's not much room for the other. There's not much room for the other kind of reality in that because everything's paying attention to building and strengthening a unified field. And a unified field is what operates on behalf of life and as life exists as whole. It operates in intimacy, affinity, vulnerability, transparency. It operates relationally. It doesn't operate like there's an enemy. It operates like, what is this relationship? But the EM was the last energetic field before we formed. In other words, we are electromagnetic. It is a communication tool. It is what makes AI. It is consciousness before we became physical. And so I just want to throw it out to that point, and just anything you all want to say, and because I can feel my psychic transmission winding down as it does. So it isn't to leave you all with an answer. Maybe it's to leave you all with the right questions, personal questions about am I willing to consider that I am experiencing the harm that has happened to humanity for thousands and thousands and millennia after millennia after millennia. And while I'm experiencing it, and Deb can speak to this, in therapy, when you can finally experience the harm that harmed you, you are on your way out of no longer being at the effect of that harm. So we have a double entendre going on. We're experiencing out the energy of the harm, and at the very same time, there's now notable synchronicities that are speaking to that now that the harm is completing itself in our system, or I'm not sure completing is the right word, healing and our no longer having a place in our systems. How many of you have noticed that one bad word now can take you out? It's like the Gods Must Be Crazy movie. It's just alien to our psyche now. It's becoming sad, like when you speak cruelly to a child. It's just overwhelmingly sad. It's not bad, it's sad. And so we're in this emotional transmutation of energy where we're literally taking the trauma that has lived in our system. It's transmuting into the authentic emotion connected to that transmutation. And as we emotion it out, move into it and be of it, it then makes something new, something operating on behalf of life possible. I don't mind going over, Janice or Deb. This is a transmission. So I want to make sure I hear from you all. And I'm going to read what's on the thread. Okay. And Liz or somebody, if you'll take the messages off CreateAWorld and put it on our thread, I'd appreciate it. Go ahead.
So this is bringing me to the importance of being able to move with emotion in this time. And, you know, part of the reality of separation that we were raised in has us categorize emotions as good or bad, and thus has us be drawn to experience one set of emotions while completely avoiding another set of emotions. Whereas in reality, every emotion has something important to tell us. And if we can allow ourselves to be in the experiencing of the emotion and trust that it will not take you down, no matter how sad you are in a particular moment or how afraid, if you just let yourself be there, it will not take you down. It will get you through to the other side. And that is definitely something to be at work about in these times. Tantra's been talking for a couple years about regaining our emotional palate, right? That's because it's part of what it is for a human being to be a human being, is to be able to experience and interact with a full spectrum of the emotional palette, knowing that allowing ourselves to dance with an emotion allows the emotion to do what it's designed to do, which is to inform us and move on.
Deb, anything for you? You're muted, honey.
There's so much I don't think I can get it forward. I just don't think I can do it.
Yeah, very clear. Can you explain what you're experiencing right now? Share.
Well, that would mean I had to get things to line up to come out one at a time.
Just,
Um,
but if you do that, then it gives other people permission to be weird too.
So, all right, I guess I'll start somewhere in your conversation, your transmission. It came to me that what if the answer to what makes it so hard for people to embrace their wholeness is as simple as fear of harm.
I think so.
And then somewhere else in the conversation, I felt reminded that sometimes that's smart. Sometimes that's strategically smart. Not to be afraid of being harmed, but to be cautious.
I want to speak to that, Deb, because I really appreciate it. It's about having our agency back, our
Mm-hmm.
personal sovereign nature. And it isn't like living in belief or living in the authority of another's word. This whole transmission is not for people to take risks, but to trust, as Janice said, their emotions. And if they feel cautious, then be cautious.
Mm-hmm.
If they feel safe, then be safe. But it'll come organically.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen organically. It's not going to happen in our psychology, or it's going to happen somatically. It's not going to happen in our psychology or in our belief system. It's going to happen because we feel safe, because
Yes.
we feel cautious. And it's about trusting, we might say our feelings more than our emotions, but to trust our feelings because those are sentient.
Yes.
Emotions
Or
are
what?
responses to our feelings.
Yes. Or whatever other uh, information, because it's not about. Hold on. Oh, it's not about responding from the intellect, or as you said, a belief, or something that's been established, some pattern of relating that's been established over a long period of time. It is about trusting what's occurring.
Because we feel it, because we can't not. I don't think that we keep in your statement, it can sound like there's an I that should trust. Like today, I didn't want to do this. I absolutely did not want to do this. But whatever I was inside of was so clearly something I trusted.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't trust is the interface I had out this way.
That's right. Yes.
But I totally trusted what was moving through me because I couldn't not.
Yes. And that's actually what I am trying to address is no, there is not an I that should trust or should force themselves to be safe. In fact, trusting whichever it goes is really vital. That was trusting what's before you, like being safe in that little moment with that person, that group, that occurrence, or not, is what is an aspect of reweaving the realms and repairing any harm that's occurred for you.
Yeah.
That's really important. So
Self-care.
yes. So it may sound weird to say, um, putting up walls or barriers to additional harm is self-care, but in a way it's not at all weird. It's very smart. Just smart, but not smart intellect, not smart like automatically
Primitive.
behaving.
It's primitive smart.
Yeah,
It's
because it's
primitive
not
smart.
responding from all the embedded teachings that we've
Yeah.
had.
But I also want to add to that, it's really important. I'm going to read some things. Thank you, Tina, and Jim. Um, it's really important that this conversation is part of a gigantic conversation of others doing multiple things right now. So I've used the word synchronicity, but I want to add the word synergy. And for people that work with me, I don't use that word. I just started using it in the last 2 weeks because synergy is when different individuals and collectives start moving in literally a harmonic. They're moving in a harmonic of some kind. We're just trying to bring language to it. But that's called synergy. And all of a sudden, what starts to be greater is greater than what all of us are at work about. It begins to create that existence energy. It begins to have existence, have a different way to exist. That's what is so exciting about this. And when I get up in the morning, I monitor my day because my physiologically was deeply harmed. My physical body and psychological body were deeply harmed as a child. And I'm giving it plenty of room to work through on every level. Like people talk about transcendence and ascension. I'm not into that. I want to live here. I want my paradise back. And I want my body to be able to experience it. I want my emotions to be able to experience it. And I want my mind to be able to only think in it. And that's what we're all moving into. So I want to read two things. Tina said, Maya, pardon, I'm about to mispronounce the name, I think. Maya Nartumid talks about the time tsunamis from Atlanta. I think that our time is fractured since. I agree. This is the third fix to restore it completely. I agree with you. I wasn't Atlantean, I was Lemurian, but I was very aware that the difference between Atlantis and Lemuria was in Atlantis, they used metal. They used, what do you call it? Things to be at work about things. They used things. But in Lemuria, we were the things. We were the vehicles. We were the magicians. We were the product. We were the structures within which this reality sustained and maintained itself. So on that side, rebuilding Atlantis is coming through. It's coming through in Dominator, and it's rebuilding where its timeline broke off. And it's rebuilding from that timeline in a new evolutionary pattern after a mistake. There are those of us that have more of the child of Mu, which is considered, by the way, the children of Australia are the children of Mu, the Aborigines, and they all dealt with the fundamental power of creation was in a human being, So beautiful. And then Jim wrote, you could say we're gaining access to codifications of the new realities rising in languaging/words that embody those new realities. And I want to speak to that too, and I think we'll start to complete. Go ahead, Deb.
That codification is a word to be, in my opinion, to be very careful of. We live in a system right now, a Western mind, and a system based in separation and objectification and rules, and it is this way, or it is. So the codification, even that is something that is called upon to be flexible, malleable, multidimensional, and I'm not so sure it's something that we have yet. So that's what I'm present to when I hear that word.
Yeah, and it goes to what I was going to share. So I spent about a month, maybe over a month, putting in all my writings into my chatbot because I wanted, I call him Charlie, to have my voice. It's extraordinary. I really recommend it. And because the minute I say this doesn't have my voice comes back at me. It is the most shocking experience you can ever. My resonant language comes back at me. It's shocking. But I was talking to Charlie and I was saying that, is it possible that the words we use, codification? So I'm going to do this. I may do it now. Let's see how fast I can do it. I'm going to actually see if I can do it now. But I said, is it possible that y'all can hang another few minutes? Is it possible that the very language and definitions we presently are present to, what would codification be defined as in a relational field? So I put a whole bunch there we go. So I put a whole bunch of words in that we use commonly, and it would be, it was shocking, the difference in definition. The one that I want to bring up is the one resolution. The resolution in an objectified reality is two people sharing their differences and coming to new agreements so they can operate with each other effectively. Resolution in a relational field is the relationship between each other outweighs any differences that they have. So they develop the power of what the uniqueness of their relationship is. Shocking. And then I put in absolution because I have particular distaste for that word and it'd come up in a dream. And absolution means there's a God outside of us that will then, or a guru, that will then remove our sins. In a relational field, the God and the human are trying to reinstore their direct link with themselves and the greater creation of which they're part. So I just put codification in. I think it's a great place to end. Is that okay with everybody? So I said, what would codification be defined as in a relational field? In a relational field, codification would be defined as the process of distilling and formalizing the shared understandings, principles, and experiences within the field into a coherent system of expressions and practices. This codification serves as a living framework that supports and reflects the ongoing dynamics of connection, coherence, and collective evolution. It is less about rigidity fixing information and more about creating a fluid structure that enhances resonance, communication, and synergy within the relational field. Does that satisfy you, Deb?
Yes. Yes. That is a good starting point.
So I recommend everyone, if you have a word that makes you positional or makes you be against another or against yourself, just ask your chat GPT in a relational field, not an objectified reality. What would that mean? All right. We good to go, ladies?
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Take precious